I get a message, it says, leave. And I think to myself, that is quite a unique way to tell people the store is closed. As we make our way there, something happens to the pilot, and I end up having to take over the flying. After landing safely, this donut tells me I fly like crap. Oh, I apologise, I forget how terrorists usually have wonderful safety records when it comes to flying. As I'm doing this, a woman won't leave me alone. She's begging me for money, saying how her family are starving, and so I help her out by killing her. At least now her family have one less person to feed. If that's not compassion, I don't know what is. I see one guy trying to hold the zombies off with a baseball bat. Then he's clearly calling out for our help. And I think, well, since we're on a helicopter, I can get some really good angles to take pictures of him as he gets himself killed and eaten by the zombies. No stuff is getting weird when even a piano is trying to kill you. It starts off with me being awoken from hypersleep, and I show there's no ill effects of the thawing process by jumping on my colleague's head and flashing my torch constantly in his face. I also shoot a friendly and get in trouble. Turns out that it's kind of frowned upon to shoot your fellow soldiers in the head. My bad, it's my first day. I move on to do a test to prove my worth. I do absolutely awful. I even flashbang myself. But they still say it's okay for me to join them. If this is what it takes to be a member of the SAS, it's pretty concerning. Taking on someone as incompetent as me, clearly a liability that shoots fellow soldiers at a shooting range, but they say it's okay for me to join, well then anything that's going to go wrong is completely on them. I managed to use my elite investigative skills to find what appears to be my own body, and after a bit of a breakdown, I then managed to find the missing teacher, who isn't in a good way, what with being dead and all. I go to take a closer photo and almost have a heart attack, as it turns out the teacher who I thought was dead isn't dead, and he pleads with me to help shortly before dying. Thankfully, the teacher that I thought was dead, who wasn't dead, ended up giving me some vital info before he did dead. We jump off the helicopter into the frozen water, and wouldn't you have guessed it, it's cold. So cold in fact that my balls no longer exist. That means but bad Santa is sending people to kill me. It's pretty relentless. And although I'm doing the kills, I'm lucky when Malik arrives to lend a hand. He would lend two, but he's only got one. Anyway, eventually, we all huddle up together to watch the red mercury bomb explode, and all the pretty fireworks, except I use my device to make it not happen. So the only fireworks we see are Emil's. He's livid, and instead of blaming the guy who used to be, and still is, a covert operative, the very person who planted the bomb, and who's clearly been sneaking around restricted areas of the HQ, he blames Enrica, and then shoots her dead. I don't have time to feel guilty as I've got to go to Kinshasa to deal some weapons and go for a meeting. We search the village buildings to capture him, and wouldn't you know it, he's in the last place we look. Before we get to him, our boss Captain Price says we need to keep this baddie alive, shortly before punching him senseless and shooting him in the head. Or what it is, but I spend my time beating the heck out of it until I throw it down, and for no good reason, it explodes. I managed to rescue Captain Keyes though, who has a handy name tag in case you forget who he is. I make my way to the docks to get some info. Some guy pushes me, so I retaliate by pushing him back into the sea, and he drowns. I think to myself, what an idiot, he can't even swim. Good thing I can swim. Turns out though, Altair can't. So I can't. Really helpful. I have a face-off with the school cook, and she's not happy about my comments on the food. She can take a lot of damage, but then again, it looks like her body's been taking a beating for years. Anyway, the joke's on him, or perhaps underneath him, as he ends up falling on his chainsaws and dying. And it's okay to say it's funny, because at least he dies laughing. Anyway, I make it to the tracksuit wearing fashion criminal, and I'm tasked with disarming and restraining him. I don't do a great job as he ends up shooting himself, although technically it does mean he's both disarmed and restrained, but it wasn't what my boss had in mind. We make our way through the swamp and aliens are everywhere. Some of them even attach themselves to my colleagues. I'm scared of shooting them off just in case I accidentally kill the Marines. So I just let the aliens kill the Marines and then shoot the aliens after. The Marines still die, but I didn't kill them directly, so I don't feel as guilty. It to the butcher, and it turns out that the butcher wants to give me his meat. Well, technically he wants to give me Carlito's meat, because he thinks Carlito is meat, which I guess is technically true. For some reason, Butcher Larry thinks I'm his customer, though I hope this isn't how he usually treats customers. by throwing his meat in their face, the naughty boy. Anyway, we have a feud over food that's not actually food, and by the end he does get meat when he meets his doom, because he gets deaded by me. And after all that, Carlito dies, but not before calling me fat. Maybe it's the dress. I get to the hospital and I see a patient running away, claiming the doctor is insane. The doctor protests, claiming his innocence, and demonstrates further how pure his motives are by having some guards break both the patient's legs. I got tasked with killing some guy to further prove my loyalty, I guess. It's a real ethical conundrum, but it turns out I'm more than happy to blow his brains out rather than blow my cover. Still, God bless the ease of availability of firearms in the US of A, because now I have access to shotguns and sniper rifles. If this was the UK, all we'd have is harsh language, a feather duster, and an occasional headbutt. I take out this other guy and think to myself, I'm probably going to get in trouble for this one because the moment he wakes up, it's going to be real touch and go if he survives this or not. I manage to get to an escape pod and I throw this Marine on like he's hand luggage. Some of the Marines are scared, telling me how they don't want to die and stuff. And as the Master Chief, I want to show my compassionate side by putting a nice, reassuring hand on their shoulder to let them know everything's going to be alright. No, turns out it's not going to be alright. They're all dead. The big bad guy makes his way towards me and shows how he's not completely harmless, which I think isn't a bad joke to think before you die. But just as I think I'm about to be dead for good, Price slides me a handgun and I John Wick the bad guy in the back of the head, and his cronies too. The good Russians come to rescue us. I look over at Price and I'm not sure he's going to make it, which means we'd be priceless. I think to myself, that's another good joke as I'm lifted to safety, just as I leap to another game.